You are
Hello,
live
hello,
on
Eve.
Chew
Hello,
Gum with
Alyssa.
Eve and Alyssa. What do you want to talk to us about tonight?
Hello.
Yes. So the question in the title was, "Who is a Christian life good for?" And I was thinking about that, and I was telling my wife, "Okay, I should call in because it's good for me, my wife, and my kids."
Well, hopefully it's good for everybody if you have access to some sort of truth or evidence for
Right.
this claim. So let's hear it. So you have a stance on who the Christian life is good for, and who would you say the Christian life is good for?
Well, like I said, for us, it's good for because we're growing in wisdom. We
Oh,
we
you're
grow in
saying, okay, I
patience.
get what you're saying. You're saying it's good for
Yeah,
your specific family. Do you think that this
yeah.
only applies to your family? I'm just trying to get an understanding.
Not at all. I think anyone who applies what we apply in our lives will also have that growth. And I've seen it too. I've had
So
people
you
that
would
I
say that
talk to that
anybody that follows the Christian life, it will be beneficial for them.
100%.
Okay, cool. And by Christian life, what would you define that as?
A life categorized by following Jesus and his commandments.
And how would one go about doing that?
Well, one, they would read what he says and keep them and follow them.
Okay. Do you think that there are any of Jesus's commandments that are not relevant to people?
I can't think of one. I'm not saying there
Okay,
isn't.
cool.
Maybe in our time it's a little bit different. So
Yeah. Have you guys sold everything you have and given to the poor?
no, we have not done that.
Would you think that's one of the things that Jesus said for people to do?
No,
You don't think he said that?
he told the rich young ruler to do that, but he didn't like demand that all
Who
should
do you
sell
who do
everything
you
they
think
have
that
and give to the poor.
applies to? Do you think Elon Musk should sell all that he has and give to the poor?
Not necessarily. I think if he'd probably do better help if he didn't sell everything he had. But
Okay, so we
one of
don't
the
think
commandments
not that part. Okay, so we don't want to do that.
one of the Christian commandments, real quick, is that if you are rich, you're rich in good works and you're blessing others. So if I were to sell whatever I had right now and gave to the poor, I would be a less help to the poor, and rather than
Sure,
keeping my money
I
and
can get
delegating
behind
it
that.
properly.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to kind of gauge where you're at with all of this.
Yeah.
Honoring your mother and father. Do you think every person should honor their mother and father no matter what?
Yes, and when I understand honor your mother and father doesn't mean that if they tell you to go rob a bank or whatever, you listen to them or whatever. I think honoring your mother and father would be being a person that even if they didn't raise you, you can say that, wow, that person must have good parents. I'm sure you've heard that phrase before.
So what if somebody's
where it's
parents
also-
what if somebody's parents abused them like horrifically? Should they honor those parents?
to a certain extent, I think their
To what
behavior,
extent?
as I'm trying to explain,
To what extent?
right, as their behavior, as I'm trying to explain, will honor them, regardless of what how parents they are and however they are.
Why?
Their
Why is
behavior
that
of
good
being
to
wise.
honor parents that have been abusive?
I'm not saying it's good to honor parents that have been abusive. I'm just saying that if you were to live a life that is good, you will honor your parents regardless. That's a way to honor your parents. But if your parents are abusive, and saying, "Oh yeah, you were great for abusing me," I don't think that that falls in line with Christian behavior or or Christian commandment. If that makes sense.
Cool. Okay. So loving your enemies, are you good with that? He commanded his
Yes.
followers to show love to even to those that oppose them. So would you apply that just to individuals, or do you think that politicians should take the same approach and love their enemies and just kind of
Yeah.
no war,
Yeah, 100%.
no war, like,
Everyone should.
for sure, no
Yeah.
war.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. You're already being more consistent than a lot of Christians that follow that. So here's where I really want to get to. Do you believe that people should have to learn these things from Jesus in order for them to live a good life?
I think you can only learn it in its complete form from Jesus. Now,
riddle me
is it
this.
possible
What if
that
somebody, real quick,
I'm
so
qualifying. Okay, go ahead.
if there were to be somebody that followed these
Mhm.
things that you think that you've kind of taken, you're like, well,
Mhm.
these are the things I think Jesus cared about and whatever, and these are the things I don't think
Yes.
mattered as much, because you've already said
Mhm.
things different than other Christians, because I think each Christian has different interpretations of what they think Jesus really wanted them to do. So if we're going with what you think that Jesus wants
Mhm.
people to do, if I find somebody that is doing those things and doesn't believe in Jesus, maybe has never even heard of
Mhm.
Jesus, and learned those
Yeah.
things from somebody else who did not learn those things from Jesus, is that okay? Is that still
Yeah.
like,
So Jesus
how do
came for
you,
the sick, right? Before I became a Christian, I was sick. I would consider myself sick, spiritually, behaviorally, to ground it. I was sick behaviorally. I had a lot of behavioral issues, right? And Jesus came and cured that. Now, if somebody doesn't have those issues and they believe that they're fine and they never heard Jesus before in their life, Jesus said he came for the sick. I don't believe there's anyone really like that out there, but if there is, then by all means, carry on.
yeah. So I'm somebody that when I followed Jesus, it was not going well for me. I was literally sick. I had horrific anxiety and depression, and it was causing me to I was in the ER several times a month for a
Mhm.
year because it was giving me panic attacks, all this stuff. So then, as soon as I accepted the fact that I had lost my faith and I moved on with my life, apart from this idea of living a Christian lifestyle, or living the Christian
Mhm.
life, whatever we want to call it, everything got better for me. And I've been a much
Mhm.
more fulfilled and content. All the things that you hear Christians say, like, I actually have peace and joy in my life. So for me, the
Mhm.
Christian life was terrible. It was not good at all. So, how do we determine whether it's a Christian life or whether it's just a few good principles that come from this one very small part of the Bible that we have to extract the good parts from? Because let me tell you, when Jesus says to turn the other cheek, and you tell that to a woman that's in an abusive relationship, that's not good. That lifestyle is not good for her. So if I have to take out very specific little parts and then say, well, that's the Christian life, what's the point when I can do that without having to have a Christian life and I can just live a good life on my own without all the
I mean,
harm,
that's what
without all the
yeah.
potential misunderstandings?
So you said, and I like that you put in that without all the potential misunderstanding, because you said some things there which we don't have to really cover, unless you want to. But if you think that is what's helpful to you, the question was, who is Christianity good for? And from
Right.
the experience that I have with Christianity, it's good for me. The experience my wife has with Christianity is good for her. The experience that my kids have with Christianity is good for them. And anyone that I've come in contact with and taught Christianity to, which, believe it or not, there are many people in the church that don't know Christianity. They
How do
just
you know
are
what's
like,
real Christianity and what isn't?
hmm So real Christianity starts with keeping the commandments of Christ. And
Right,
true
but how do you
Christianity,
determine? Because, like I said, you think
mhm,
some things are real commandments and some things aren't. That I can have 5 other Christians call in and say they disagree with you on all counts. So, how do we determine what true
mhm,
Christianity is?
right. So let me explain. So there's only one true Christianity. Anything else outside of that is false. The Christianity teaches that we ought to be
But
one
that's not
mind.
the
So there's
answer.
multiple
So,
Christian. Hold
that's
on,
not
I'm
my.
just
That's not the
qualifying and then
answer.
I'm giving the answer. Okay,
Yeah, we need to just get to answers quickly instead of just repeating stuff, because
sure,
otherwise we can't
sure,
get a
sure.
whole call in. Yeah. So
Please.
how do we determine what true Christianity is? I understand that you think true Christianity is a
Mhm,
thing. I understand that you've said what you think true Christianity is. How do we determine
mhm.
true from false
You
Christianity?
yeah. You read the scriptures, you read the Bible, and you read it in context, and you take it in its proper context. There's something called
How do
hermeneutics,
we
where you
determine
can.
what proper context is? Because I
What
did
I'm
all of
explaining the
that,
term.
and my determination
Mhm,
was that it's not true. So what makes
okay.
you right that you found true
Mhm,
Christianity and me wrong?
right. As I was explaining hermeneutics, hermeneutics is a method of studying the scripture that
Yeah,
allows
I'm well
you to
aware.
know what it. Yes, I'm
I
sure.
went to Minnesota and I
That
did. That's how I became an atheist.
Right. So you know. So hermeneutics is the way that you determine whether you know what is being said is true
So
or
then
not, or
I'm right
whatever is
because
being is
I studied
consistent.
hermeneutics and I came to the conclusion that there's no good reason to believe any of this stuff. That I'm
Well,
asking
I'm not sure.
how do we
It
how do we tell the difference between if I'm correct in where I've landed, which is that I don't find it believable, or if you're correct, which is that you not only believe the Christian life is good for people, but you believe you happen to know more than any other denomination, more than any other Christian, what true Christianity is. How did you reach that conclusion, and how can you prove to me that you are right? Because if you're right, I want to know that.
Yeah. So how I reached the conclusion is, this is just a personal testimony, and I'll be very quick, is that, I prayed to God to be like Jesus, to be like him. And he showed me that the only way to do that is to trust in him and read his commandments and keep them. So that's how we work our way into knowing the truth, by actually reading what is being said, understanding it in its proper context, and then
Matthew,
actually applying it to our lives.
Yeah, but there are people that call this show that disagree with a lot of things that you've said that you believe are Jesus's commandments.
I'm sure. I talked to a bunch.
That have the exact same story as you, where they tell me when I ask them how they reach their conclusion, and it very often comes down to a personal experience they had where they prayed and God told them something. So which one of you is talking to God?
Yeah.
Which one is the real God? Can the real God please pick up? How do we know? How do I take you differently than any other caller?
So with anything, there's a personal experience. Even if you're learning something, you experience it personally, but then you practically apply it, and then it expresses itself interpersonally, if that makes sense. So other people can see it, and other people can experience it as well. And so when I teach Christianity, other people say, "Wow." So obviously, I get people who disagree with me, but those who are sincere say, "No, this is true Christianity," and they can learn it. And I can tell you exactly what true Christianity is without a problem, and biblically back it up.
I'm trying to understand exactly what your point was and what you just said. Are you saying that because you've done the things you feel God told you and it's worked out for you, that's evidence that was true? If I had to sum it up?
Not necessarily. Basically, but like you can practice. What I'm trying to get is that you can practically apply it, and it's evident in your behavior. Christianity obviously is a behavioral
so if somebody
right?
behaves, if their behavior is something we would say is noteworthy in a positive way, then that's indicative of them being correct? Because I know a lot of people that believe all kinds of things, including way different versions of Christianity than you, that are really decent people with really great behavior most of the time. So what makes you right and them wrong as far as true Christianity goes, if what you believe is in conflict with each other? Like I have a friend and she is a Christian, and she believes that there's no hell, and you don't have to, that maybe Jesus wasn't even real. We don't know. It's mostly stories, and it's good to follow it. But I don't know if you align with any of that. And she has amazing behavior. She's an incredible person. And clearly the way she's applying what she believes to her life is working really well for her. So how do we determine if she's right or if you're right?
Yeah, so you assumed a lot there. What I was trying to say is that if it's consistent with the teachings of Christ and the behavior of Christ is what I was trying to get at. It's not just
she would say, like, that for her example, beliefs are.
I'm a Christian, right? And I believe my wife should submit. And if I say that to certain people, even people in the church, people will freak out and be like, "What do you mean submit?" and all this stuff. But that's consistent with Christian teaching. So just because people don't like it doesn't mean that it's not consistent with Christian teaching. It doesn't mean that it's not beneficial behavior.
I can tell you right now, I've had this talk a million times on this show, that I was the submitted Christian wife, and it did not go well for me at all. It was, I mean, the worst of the worst. It's like, how is that a good thing for women to submit to a husband when she gets mistreated the entire time? And don't forget about that verse that says that it is better for a woman to endure the abuse, and that is how she basically can prove herself to God. So you can't say, "Oh, it's not supposed to happen to abuse." Yeah, I can actually. Let me see.
Yeah.
Alyssa, do you have anything you want to chime in on while I look up that verse?
I honestly, when we were talking about how following the teachings of Jesus and the Bible would lead you to good behavior, I started Googling the amount of serial killers that believe in the Bible, and there's a lot. And so my point in doing that was just to say that, just like, it's there are also serial killers who would identify as being atheist. I don't think that saying that you're going to follow the 10 Commandments means that you are a good person. And I think
if you follow the 10 Commandments, you wouldn't be a serial killer.
Yeah, but I also think that there's parts of the 10 Commandments that we pick apart and decide to cherry pick and choose what we want to believe in and what we don't. And so
that would be Christianity.
So you follow all of the 10 Commandments all the time, at all times.
I believe so. At least I hope I am.
Do you think that there are some other important things that maybe should have been added to the 10 Commandments, like don't rape people, don't own people as slaves? Instead, God wasted several of them on things about himself because his ego is so big that he needs to make sure that he gets worshipped, not anybody else, that we honor our mother and father.
Like three of the commandments about God, and then like the rest are about, that's like 3 out of 7. That's for God. God does 3. Yeah. God gets 3.
And those 3, you know what I would replace those with? I would have replaced those with don't rape people, don't own people as slaves. Well, if you're not looking after somebody, you're not raping them. And don't do what I'm about to do throughout the Bible and commit genocide. Like, I would have put those in if I was God.
I see.
Here's the verse that you were asking for. It's 1 Peter 3:1. And I don't know which version you want.
You said endure and abuse.
Right. So why? This was the verse that was used oftentimes toward me and other women I know that were in marriages where their husband was not, quote, following scripture and submitting to his wife the way that Christ submits to the bride, or loving his wife the way Christ is supposed to love the bride. You know, that whole verse. And so I was told this verse, which is, wives, likewise, be submissive to your own husbands, that even if they do not obey the word, they, without a word, may be won over by the behavior of their wives. So that was basically told me, you need to behave well, even if he's not submitting himself to the word, so that he'll be won over eventually. You will be an example to him. Instead of being told, hey, if they're not treating you correctly, get the fuck out.
So when the scripture also tells, this is why, because you read likewise. So before the likewise, it says, husband, treat your wife, as the weaker vessel. And if you do not do that, your prayers will be hindered, right?
And then it follows up with saying, even if he doesn't submit to that, no, hold on, Matthew. If the next verse says, but actually, even if they don't listen to that, women, you should be the better ones. You should be the ones to endure. Do you not see how that it doesn't matter what's said before? If the woman is told that regardless she should submit, do you not see how that is absolutely priming someone for abuse? And the problem is the Bible is full of things like that somebody can call in and some other person and say God told them that they're following the Bible correctly. So we've come back to the place where we were at originally, which is, how do you determine whether you're right with your interpretations, which I am choosing to believe that you're hopefully not abusing your wife and you're not taking advantage of these verses. But how do we determine whether you're right or the person taking those verses as an opportunity to abuse somebody?
And let me be fair. Like, I can see if somebody can twist that and use that as a way. I personally would not suggest anyone stays.
You can just say it to somebody.
Okay.
So.
I would suggest anyone stay in a relationship like that. Doesn't mean that they have to divorce. That's a whole other story. So how does someone determine? To answer your question, how does someone determine whether that is true? I would say that if the behavior of the person is consistent with the scripture and the other person's behavior is not consistent, right? Let's say you have 2 people who are saying, oh, I believe the truth, and I believe this is true. I think Alyssa was bringing it up about the whole 10 Commandments thing, and some people pick and choose, cherry pick and choose the 10 Commandments. If somebody is cherry picking and choosing what commandments of Christ to follow, then they're not, obviously, you can say they're not being a true Christian.
I would say that you're cherry picking.
There's also some of the 10 Commandments include being honest and truthful at all times. Are you honest and truthful at all times?
I like to believe so.
Yeah, I don't even care so much about the 10 Commandments because you said we're talking about Jesus.
Pardon?
So, but back to one of my original things I asked you. I said, you know, Jesus said it's better to sell all that you have to the poor.
That's not what he said.
So here, I'm happy to pull up the verse.
Okay.
But my point is, I can accuse you of the very thing that you're accusing these other people of, and saying that you're twisting things and you're not applying scripture correctly, and that you're not doing.
You can.
If you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give to the poor, and then you will have treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me. He says this over and over.
There's a narrative there. He's talking to the rich young ruler.
Here he is in Luke. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide purses for yourselves that will not wear out, a treasure in heaven that will never fail. So he's saying not to pursue earthly things. Do you think that it's okay then for somebody like Elon Musk to have the amount of money that he has?
I think if Elon Musk is a Christian, which I don't know if he is or not, but if he is a Christian, as
what about
Christian teach, pardon?
Go ahead.
As Christian teaches, if somebody is rich, that they're rich in good works, that they're what they say, like able to communicate, which means like very generous with their wealth to the poor. And if you're generous with your wealth to the poor, according to Christian principles, which I've seen for myself, is that you will actually receive more. And if you receive more, you can do more to help the poor. That's why selling everything.
Why doesn't God just give straight to the poor? Why is God taking the time to bless people that are giving to the poor instead of just blessing the poor people directly? Why are there poor people at all, which is a whole nother topic? But I'm not understanding that. Also, what about these pastors who could easily call in and tell me that they have correctly interpreted the Bible, just like you're claiming you have done, and that they are true Christians and you're not, and they have fucking jet planes and drive Bugattis? Like, tell me.
Yeah, that's insane.
Right. So why am I supposed to believe you over them?
Oh, I mean, that's up to you. You just follow exactly what I said. Whose behavior will be more consistent with Christian behavior? If they're just
I don't believe there is such thing as Christian behavior. That's my whole point, Matthew, is that there's a million different interpretations of Christianity. You guys can't all agree on what Christian behavior even is.
It's not that. I know there a lot of the atheists like talk about the telephone game and it's all confusing. It really is not that confusing. Like if you sit there and you read the scripture and you do hermeneutics, you'll be able to understand Christian doctrine and how to behave as a Christian. Are there certain verses, like, for example, David talks about being a bottle filled with smoke in the King James Version? That makes absolutely no sense to someone who doesn't really know the context of that, because what he means is he's just a wineskin dried up by smoke. But
I understand this is like the least interesting to me or anyone else and isn't really going to set us on a good track.
So basically what I'm saying is that interpretation, when it comes to Christian doctrine, you can read it and understand it and practice it, and you will see the results of it, and it will be consistent with that doctrine.
Okay, so you think that if people apply that, as we've discussed, we've gone over this over and over again, you have this one specific brand of Christianity that you think is a real Christian life, that's the one true Christian, all of that. Can I ask, do you believe in the existence of a hell?
Yes.
Okay,
well,
and do you
yeah, I do.
Do you think that God is okay with people being gay?
No.
Okay, so Alyssa and I are going to hell, according to your beliefs. And yet you think that it would be beneficial for us to follow a religion that teaches you things like that. Can you tell me why it would be beneficial for me to follow a religion that goes directly against my own personal identity, that is harming nobody?
That's what God requires.
You can think that. Your claim is that it's beneficial. Your claim is that if I were to follow the Christian life, it would be good for me. Do you see now why that would not be good for me at all?
No.
You don't see that?
No.
Alyssa, anything you want to add?
So I just want to be clear. Are you implying that people who are gay would rightfully go to hell?
Yes.
Oh.
But,
Okay. So
but
you're
Christian
homophobic.
life is good.
Just
So
to be
you're
clear,
homophobic. So
I'm also implying that
religion just
anyone
made
who
you
is, hold
homophobic,
on,
and you think this is a good thing. Do you hear what you're saying?
And also, that's not
just to be,
loving everyone. That's not loving
okay,
everyone, as we started the call with.
Well, if you want to
just to
redefine
be
love, which is
clear,
what I'm assuming you're about to do. But yes, go ahead.
just to be clear, somebody who is lusting after women and a heterosexual relationship, a heterosexual promiscuous relationship, would also be worthy of hell.
Okay, I don't care. I don't care about any of that. First of all, that's wild.
Okay.
But second of all, what I care
Yeah.
about is I'm talking about the fact that the way I was born to where do you feel like you're attracted to women? Let's start there. Are you attracted to women?
I'm attracted to my wife.
Only your wife. Wow. Okay, interesting. Anyways, you're attracted to your wife. Do you think you were born without
No.
attraction for her? Or did you choose? Are you just
No.
choosing to be attracted to your wife?
No, I'm
Is it a
choosing to be
natural
attracted to her.
attraction?
Committing myself to her.
So you're not naturally attracted to your wife? Are you naturally attracted to anything, Matthew?
What do you mean by naturally attracted to anything?
I don't know how to make this more
Do
clear.
you feel
Are
like
you
your
straight?
wife?
Matthew, are you straight?
Yeah, I would say I'm straight. I'm more,
you
like I said, I'm more my wife sexual, if that makes sense. That's where my sexual preference is.
Cool. Before you knew your wife existed, were you attracted to men or women or both?
I would say I would be considered heterosexual. I liked women.
Okay, so you're straight. Were you born straight, or did you make a choice to become straight?
I think I was conditioned to be straight.
Okay, I was conditioned to be straight, and yet
And then
I naturally was attracted to both men and women. Find them both attractive. So you're saying that because I was born like that with this thing that hurts absolutely nobody at all, that I'm going to hell.
I would probably argue, in my mindset, I guess, my thing, I don't think you were born that way. I don't think anyone was born straight or gay. That'd be very problematic for people who were molested, for people who would be harmed by the same sex, and they think, oh well, they were gay because that person did something to them that caused them to be aroused or something.
Nobody's talking about any of that.
That person is gay.
I'm talking about natural attraction.
I'm not sure I agree with such an idea, if that makes sense.
You don't agree with natural attraction, that you're naturally just attracted to people?
I think that anybody can
I don't think you're being honest, Matthew. I think you're full of shit.
Okay, I'm gonna explain.
I think that you're not saying things like, I'm only attracted to my wife, and you're dodging questions, and I think it's because you're hearing that you're just actively being homophobic after trying to convince us that following Christianity is good for everybody. And now, come to find out, it doesn't make you a good person. In fact, it sounds like it's made you a really hateful person. I hope that you don't actually practice
from your
that
point
hate.
of view.
But it's really gross. If your child came to you and said they were gay, what would you do?
I would have a conversation with them about it.
Great. Can you expound, please?
Yeah, real quick. That's actually I'll do this while I was explaining my statement. Is that I believe anyone can be conditioned to have feelings for the opposite sex or the same sex, especially people who have been abused in a certain way.
Okay, we're getting into the weeds here.
So,
we're getting into the weeds.
That's not a real.
If my kid came up to me,
That's not a real thing, Matthew.
That's fine.
If your adult child, let's make this easier, Matthew. If your adult child called you, they've moved out, and they said, my partner, and it's a same-sex partner, is coming home with me for Christmas. Is that okay? What would you say?
We don't celebrate Christmas, but I mean, if they want to come to the house, I don't mind. I would have a conversation with that person too.
Would you go to their wedding?
No.
Okay.
Wow.
This religion has made you a shit person, Matthew. I'm just going to be totally real with you.
Okay.
If you have a child and you wouldn't go to their wedding
That's
because
all-
of who they love, that's absolutely depressing. That's really depressing.
And
it's
That's
made
your
you a
opinion.
bad
Matthew,
dad. It is my opinion.
Matthew,
and
That's your
I've
opinion.
backed it up with all
Mhm.
sorts of things. And it would be your child's opinion if that happened to you. So if that
Matthew,
happened to
that's
them,
That-
that's traumatic. That is you showing your child that your love for them is conditional, which is
Okay.
not what your God teaches. Your God teaches allegedly unconditional love, and you are actively showing your child that your love for them is conditional.
I can still love my child and not go to their wedding.
yeah,
I
you're
wouldn't even consider it a wedding.
redefining love. You're totally redefining love, and that's fine. I understand you have to do that in order to back what you're saying. Anyways, we've had this
Is there
call for
is there
30
an
minutes.
objective
I
definition
think
of love?
I think the conclusion we reached, I'm very unsatisfied with your argument of saying that Christian life is good for everyone, because here we've reached a point where it's clearly not. In fact, it's already not good for your child. So I'm going to let you go.
Well, good for me, my wife, and my kids.
It's not good for your kids.
It's not good.
It's not good for your kids, and it's not good for your
Okay.
wife, who you insist has to submit to you.
Submit to
I feel
you,
bad for
yeah.
your wife,
But,
and
yeah, I understand. I understand you don't like
I
that. But
pray
that doesn't
to your
mean that it's not good
non-existent-
because you don't like it.
I pray
course
to
you're
your
saying it's good.
non-existent God. I pray to your non-existent God. I just muted you so I can make my final point that none of your kids are gay. I really, really genuinely do, because oh my God, Matthew, they will never speak to you again if this is how you choose to go about this. And I can't believe that you really came into this chat, you had this conversation with us, for trying to be so genuine for 30 minutes, saying that you are a person whose life, your children's life, and your wife's life has benefited from this, when in the same breath said that your wife submits to you. Yuck. And you also would not wholly support the lifestyle that your child chooses if they happen to be gay. So I'm sorry. That is just, you have to do some reflecting. I can't believe that it took us 30 minutes to get here. I can't believe that we spent all of this time, and that's like where we landed. And I'm tremendously disappointed that that's where it landed. I'm like, truly, I am.
These are just
The
your
fact
opinions.
that you spoke to us,
Still talking.
I'm telling you right now,
while you finish your point.
Matthew, I'm telling you right now, I can tell you anecdotally, and I can tell you from research, that if you decide to tell your child that you do not accept whatever kind of partner that they have because of their sexuality, it will absolutely affect their mental health. They will not speak to you again if they have good boundaries, if they have healthy boundaries, or it's going to absolutely be detrimental to their development. So it's not just my opinion, it is the fact. You are going to actually fuck your kid up by oppressing them in that way. And you're showing, I hope to your non-existent God that you don't have a daughter, and you're teaching your daughter that she needs to submit to men like that, to men who are openly non-accepting and openly hateful of others. Because that's what you just explained. And it's frustrating because in that entire 30-minute call, you kept a very calm, very like level demeanor. And it's almost like catfishing. It's like you're trying to pull people in and be like, we are so nice and we love everyone and 10 commandments and everyone's happy and everyone's great and yeah. Meanwhile, you hate gay people.
Yeah, question. Yeah.
Oh my God. And your wife submits to you. And then, but you're telling me everyone's happy? Fuck out of here. Get out of here.
Anyway, I'm going to let his call go because I'm just kind of not interested in entertaining that. I should have just led with that question. Yeah, that was so
crazy.
Tough. Also, the part where he says he's only like when you're not answering honestly, when I ask you like who you're naturally attracted to and you're like, oh well, I only my wife and I'm not like, we don't choose. The dodging questions means you know where I'm going with this because it's kind of like common sense, and you're already trying to avoid engaging in an honest conversation, and that's silly. And also, I'd guess you probably just broke one of the 10 commandments when you answered that question, but whatever, not my business.
Absolute liar. And also, someone in the chat said he's a wife-asexual.
That's amazing. I love the idea. That's sweet. and that can be said in a sweet way, but you were clearly just like,
You're
first of all,
lying.
this is not true. You knew what I was asking, which is if you're straight. Anyways, whatever.
Hey, thanks for watching that clip. Did you know we saw what you were doing when you watched it?
We saw all of it. All of it. All of it.
So you're going to want to pay us hush money over at patreon.com/calltheline, where you can buy our silence and watch our patron exclusive podcast.